when you think about it, all law, all legislation is about the restriction of freedom. That's exactly what we're doing here, is we are restricting freedom, but we're doing it for the common good.
Hi everyone, hope you all had a great Thanksgiving. So over the holiday, there's been some serious news stories coming out of Ireland, with Conor McGregor becoming really a central figure. So to catch you all up, this all started, from what we can tell, after a suspected migrant stabbed children outside an elementary school in Dublin.
Well, you're live with BBC News. Let's return to that breaking story coming out of Dublin that 3 young children have been taken to hospital. Irish police said there'd been a serious public order incident in the city centre, which local media is saying is a multiple stabbing. The injuries to one of the children and a woman are described as, quote, serious. A witness spoke to reporters at the scene. Let's just have a quick listen.
I looked across the road and I seen a man in a stabbing motion with a load of children. So I flew across the road and the man was after stabbing two children as far as I could make out. And we got the children up to the left with the women that was there and the teachers, I presume. And then there was a bit of a hubba-balubba, if you want to call it, for the man. People were trying to attack the man, so me and another American lady, we formed a ring around the man just to say that we're not savages in this country, that we'll let the Garda do their duty. And then about 3 minutes later, the ambulance came for the children, and then another ambulance and fire officers came for the man on the ground.
And then protests and riots broke out, which were of course blamed on the far right. Ireland's chief of police blamed the rioting on a, quote, lunatic hooligan faction driven by a far-right ideology.
Now, violent protesters rioted in Dublin city centre last night after 5 people, including 3 children, were injured in a knife attack outside a school. More than 400 police officers responded.
Now, although the authorities have ruled out terrorism, the police commissioner, Drew Harris, described the riot as a complete lunatic hooligan faction driven by far-right ideology.
Now, rioting is bad. It's always bad. But you have to be an idiot to not notice that anti-immigration riots are immediately condemned as far-right, but anti-Western riots, like the BLM riots in 2020, are either excused or downplayed or celebrated. When it's supposedly far-right, it's a riot. But when it's not, it's a fiery but mostly peaceful protest. But here's where Conor McGregor really comes in. After Ireland's police chief condemned the riots, Conor McGregor posted this on X. Innocent children ruthlessly stabbed by a mentally deranged non-national in Dublin, Ireland today. Our chief of police had this to say on the riots in the aftermath. Drew, not good enough. There is grave danger among us in Ireland that should never be here in the first place, and there has been zero action done to support the public in any way, shape or form with this frightening fact. Not good enough. Make change or make way. Ireland for the victory. God bless those attacked today, we pray. Then he posted this. Any update on the well-being of those stabbed today? Absolutely horrific scenes all day. My stomach is churning. With no action being taken at all during these ever more frequent events, like literally zero action taken whatsoever, how do we expect an end to this? We need reform. We need action. In other posts, he said that the punishment for this kind of crime should be torture and death, and he also came out and spoke against the riots. I do not condone last night's riots. I do not condone any attacks on our first responders in their line of duty. I do not condone looting and the damaging of shops. Last night's scenes achieved nothing towards fixing the issues we face. I do understand frustrations, however, and I do understand a move must be made to ensure the change we need is ushered in, and fast. I am in the process of arranging. Believe me, I am way more tactical and I have backing. There will be change in Ireland, mark my words. The change needed. In the last month, innocent children stabbed leaving school, Aisling Murphy murdered, 2 Sligo men decapitated. This is not Ireland's future. If they do not act soon with their plan of action to ensure Ireland's safety, I will. And then Ireland's Deputy Prime Minister called McGregor's comments disgraceful, and McGregor responded, saying this, blame anyone but themselves. Typical. Worthless you are, Michael. Worthless and spineless. Ryan Casey called you all out last week, grieving the love of his life, stolen by porn scum, and nothing but waffle from you all since. Zero action. Everything from our lax border with gravy train benefits to our pitiful mental health services to our country in flames is on your watch. And still no plan of action. Where is our plan of action? What are we going to do to ensure this stops happening? How are we going to ensure this ceases to continue in our country? Ireland is fed up of you and your type. We are not stopping here until real change is implemented. We need safety. We need security. We need leadership. As of now, we have none of the three. Shame on you and your type. Okay, so now we're all caught up. Here's the thing. While everyone is arguing over who is right, which isn't really much of an argument, Conor McGregor is saying nothing controversial, too many people are missing really the real long-term danger here, which is the attack on free speech. After Conor McGregor spoke out, the Irish Prime Minister said that hate speech laws must be passed immediately.
We're going to make sure that we make those changes to our laws in the next couple of weeks to allow the Gardaí to use that evidence and go through that evidence and identify the people who are involved in these actions, and we are going to get them. In addition to that, I think it's now very obvious to anyone who might have doubted it that our incitement hatred legislation is just not up to date. It's not up to date for the social media age, and we need that legislation through, and we need it through within a matter of weeks, because it's not just the platforms who have a responsibility here, and they do. There's also the individuals who post messages and images online that stir up hatred and violence, and we need to be able to use laws to go after them individually as well.
And here's the legislation they're talking about. Offensive preparing or possessing material likely to incite violence or hatred against persons on account of their protected characteristics. 1. Subject to subsection 2 and 3 and section 11, a person shall be guilty of an offence under this section if the person A. prepares or possesses material that is likely to incite violence or hatred against a person or a group of persons on account of their protected characteristics or any of those characteristics with a view to the material being communicated to the public or a section of the public, whether by himself or herself or another person, and B. prepares or possesses such material with intent to incite violence or hatred against such a person or group of persons on account of those characteristics or any of those characteristics, or being reckless as to whether such violence or hatred is thereby incited. Now, specific incitement of violence is not covered by free speech, but hatred is. And why is that? Because hatred is entirely subjective. And that's before we get to the other vague words used to expand hate speech to be exactly what the government wants. Anything can incite hatred. Anything can be deemed to be motivated by a desire to incite hatred. What does likely to incite violence or hatred even mean? Now, the West is under attack in so many ways. One is the complete refusal to speak out against the obvious downsides of diversity and inclusion and multiculturalism, ignoring that importing people who hate Western culture will have deadly consequences, basically what Conor McGregor is arguing. But honestly, the most fundamental attack is the attack on free speech. Free speech doesn't really exist anywhere outside of the United States. Other countries might say they have free speech, but there's a massive difference between saying you have free speech and having the kind of concrete protection of free speech that the First Amendment gives you. And every other country, including Ireland clearly, proves how important the First Amendment is. Because free speech is a barrier for most of these politicians who just want more power. Here's how one Irish senator described Ireland's hate speech bill.
When you think about it, all law, all legislation is about the restriction of freedom. That's exactly what we're doing here, is we are restricting freedom, but we're doing it for the common good. You will see throughout our constitution, yes, you have rights, but they are restricted for the common good. Everything needs to be balanced. And if your views on other people's identities go to make their lives unsafe, insecure, and cause them such deep discomfort that they cannot live in peace, then I believe that it is our job as legislators to restrict those freedoms for the common good.
When freedom itself gets in their way, the solution is to just get rid of it. This same logic is being pushed all over Europe, and it's starting to take root here. An American was just thrown in prison for tweeting a meme. We're watching our future unfold in Europe, and it's time to dig our heels in and defend the First Amendment, because if we don't, every other freedom will be taken away for the common good, said every dictator ever.